Zoom Hangout in there, okay? Hi, good morning, everybody. I'll be here if you have any question, just do tell me. So far, Carlos has connected. Carlos, do you have any question? I'll be here if you have. In case you have any question, just ask. I'll be here for a while. Well, this week's test is going to have several parts. We are going to be evaluating the Gothic movement. We're going to be evaluating dark romanticism. Those are the basic concepts, the basic literary genres we'll be asking questions about this week. And, well, in them we'll have several stories. We will be talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, as well as several stories from Edgar Allan Poe. And thanks to the presentation made by your classmates, we will be discussing at least some minor aspects of the European dark romanticism, especially Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu and, well, Dracula by Bram Stoker. The questions are going to be very simple. It's a very straightforward test. You're going to have dictation, and you're going to have to write some sentences based on the dictation. Then we're going to have some background information questions. It has to do with your understanding of the literary movements and the whole historical aspect of the literary movements. We will then have some questions about the stories and the literary concepts that we have worked, like, for example, foreshadowing, as I mentioned in class. You will have to relate the concept that you have to handle and you have to understand with the sample, with any sample that you choose, based that we have actually read in class during this term. We will also have questions related to the stories themselves that will prove that you actually read those stories, and you will have to write a little something at the end of the test. It's going to be a couple of paragraphs, perhaps. It is a simple test, but it's going to be long, and you're going to have to work through it basically in a rush, because you only have 55 minutes to finish. Considering that Tuesday, third year B, tends to begin always a little bit late due to the weather or due to the traffic or due to whatever, I advise you actually get to school as soon as possible, just to ensure that you can actually begin your test when the time is due to begin. Third year A at least does not have that problem on Tuesday. Any question, you can write them in the YouTube page where the video that you're watching is there. Carlos has just pointed out something, but it's not an actual question that should be answered. I am here completely open. Important things. Review the classroom, the concepts, all the content is in the Google Classroom. Your parents have access to it too, just in case you mysteriously lose access to your Google Classroom. Carlos asked, do we need to read all the stories you sent in classroom? Well, yeah. We have talked about all the stories, and I did say that you had to read The Raven and The Black Cat over the weekend, and The Pit and the Pendulum. Yes, Carlos, all the stories that I have sent must be read. When is the next movie? Let's see how things work out next week. If possible, perhaps on Wednesday or perhaps on Tuesday, but not this week, but the following. We have some interesting movies. For example, the 1922 Nosferatu movie that could be interesting. We also have the 1979 version of the same movie, which is also very interesting. It's a little bit different, but it is quite interesting. Anyhow, next week we are beginning with a new literary genre called American Realism. In American Realism, we will watch at least one movie based on a story by Ambrose Bierce titled The Occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge. It's a like a half a chapter of the Twilight Zone, the television series from the 50s and 60s. I hope that answers your question, Carlos. Well, anyhow, next week then we'll be working with Ambrose Bierce. It is important that you see the presentation that's going to be uploaded into Classroom tomorrow. The presentation is going to be very simple, very straightforward. Ambrose Bierce is quite an interesting character, and the way that he presents a new vision of literary manifestation, I think it's completely worth it. Let's see if anybody else has a question. We have 20 minutes to go here. Okay, Adrian asks if Carmila and the modes of characterization are going for the test. The eight modes of characterization are going to be in the test, but they're not going to be explicitly on the test, like what type of character this work. Now, you're going to have to understand how the modes of characterization appear in the story, and you're going to have to explain those modes of characterization, at least indirectly. I'm not going to be asking specifically about them. Carmilla is going to be part of the test. We had a couple of very good presentations in both classrooms, and I think it's completely worthwhile that at least we discuss differences between the British version of dark romanticism and the American version. Yes. Carlos asks if I'm going to ask the difference between romanticism and American romanticism. Through the dark versions of both movements, there's going to be a very specific question about both of them. I need to know whether you understand the difference between what was happening in the Isles in Great Britain, what was happening in America, and why some manifestations were occurring here and not there, or why were they different and how they were different. Although we did a Venn diagram in both classes, the Venn diagram is really important that you check it just to refresh your memory. If you have any other question. How will the vocabulary be evaluated in the test? Yeah, I always separate my tests in parts, like in focuses, different points of emphasis. The first one tends to be a very simple approach, which is vocabulary, like dictation, and use some words from the dictation in context. It's going to have some points. And Luciana is spying. Hi, Luciana. You're always welcome to spy in whatever I do. Well, yes, the vocabulary that's gonna be it. Just you point out the words. You write down the words that I dictate, and you just write. Eventually, you'll have to write some sentences. I am very strict in my correction, so the sentences have to be thorough, complete, full-fledged sentences. Subject, verb, predicate, and emphasis on the use of objects and supporting sentences, statements, etc. Apart from that, we do always have grammar and spelling and syntax correction in the test. So if you don't write properly, I will actually point out that you have made a mistake, and that will count points off your final grade. And you will also have to, well, that will have some negative repercussions on the understanding, because if I don't understand what you're trying to say, how can I correct appropriately what you want to say? I'm good, but I'm not a wizard. I hope that answers your question, Adrian. I'm going to say something in the group. Oh, Adrian asks, so the sentences have to be related to the stories. It's easier. It's easier if you relate them to the story because that allows you to transversalize the ideas. But no, just have to be appropriate, well-formed, coherent, cohesive sentences. Is there any dictation? As I have said, yes. And how many points off will you take from bad writing? Well, 3 points off the final grade are always like a constant in my tests. It's always after the final correction. I suppose that you got a 20, you get a 17 if you make more than 10 spelling mistakes, because each spelling mistake, grammar mistake, or syntax mistakes counts off 0.3 points from your final grade. Only if you pass. If you don't pass, which should not happen, if if it were to happen, you would not get points off because I don't flunk you because of spelling mistakes after the dictation, specific dictation. Ask questions because some of your classmates may go on to the YouTube live feed in a while. It will no longer be live, but perhaps they'll find it interesting and could see your questions and ask questions on their own. There are, by the way, several spelling lists from Frankenstein letter 1, chapter 1, till the vocabulary activity number 4 that had words taken from the black cat. So they're gonna. I mean, there's a large universe of words that can be dictated. Some of the words, if not many of the words, are actually words that we constantly use in our everyday vocabulary and we should use in our writing. So it's not going to be that impossible. I'm not going to be asking for specific meanings either. Like, what does sagacity mean? We know that sagacity means intelligence, but it's not like I'm going to ask like specifically the concept. And you're always welcome, Luciana. Adrian, the test is going to be long, 55 minutes long. If you finish the test earlier, then congratulations. It's awesome. Be sure that you finished it. Be sure that you can actually correct it before turning it in to me, because once you give it to me, it's your last chance. It's the last moment that you're going to have to do with your test, and then it's going to be my turn to correct. And Classcraft is going to be used in the test. If anybody has any skill in Classcraft, well, you can make use of it in the test. Obviously, you're going to realize that the type of questions that I ask are not questions that have to do with a right or wrong answer, but they have to do with the way that you express yourself and how you explain your own perspective. So some Classcraft skills may not be 100% useful in the sense that there is not going to be one specific answer, like this is the answer, but they're going to have, well, multiplicity of answers and possibilities, and it really depends on you and what you do. Another thing, it's mandatory, we have to have good behavior in the test. If there is bad behavior in the test, I immediately remove the test, you get a 0-1, you lose the possibility, and you get a report to your parents saying that you misbehaved in the test, which is not what we expect of students in third year in Colegio Integral del Ávila. You have to know that you don't speak in the test, you don't copy on the test, you don't do bad things on the test. It's just moral boundaries that we should already handle perfectly. I'll write down. No, Carlos. Invisibility cannot be used during tests because it implies leaving the classroom, and there's a rule against leaving classrooms, as you know it. The The skills that can be used are, I think it's the healers or the mages. They have a skill that allow them to ask me a question during the test, but not invisibility because what you propose there is actually quite immoral. Because you know that that would be cheating, and you know that cheating is not only punishable by school rules, but also punishable by classcraft rules. We have 9 minutes more. It's almost time to lunch, and it's Sunday. We should be with our parents and our family. Just a little while more. Do you have to write an essay on the test? No, I haven't taught you how to write an essay, Adrian, though I know that you should have your basic understanding of how essays work. While I don't give you the specific writing tools, I cannot ask you to do that in a test because that would be quite unfair. I will teach you how to write essays, and once I teach you how to write essays, which will be soon, don't worry, don't fret about it. I will ask you to write essays. I don't know if I can ask in terms of time because we only have a limit time, and limit time. Well, if I have to ask many other questions, it's going to be quite impossible in an hour. If I were to ask you for an essay in a test, I would have to move the test from a Tuesday to a Wednesday when we have an hour and a half. So no, you will have to write a comment. Which comments I have told you how to write them, and we have actually discussed commenting in class during the month that we've been together. We have several viewers here. Oh, Gustavo, hi. What Gustavo asks, what kind of questions you'll ask about the stories we read. Um, I'm just being creative right now. It does not necessarily mean I'm gonna ask this in the test. It could be a question like this. How does the narrator in, the Cask of Amontillado behave in the story, or what type of bias does the narrator have concerning the action of the story, or is the narrator reliable in the story? Yes, no, and why? You always have to support your answer. It's never going to be true or false in that sense. I may ask true or false question like if I'm doing a reading check. That's going to be more like a quiz thing. If I send an online quiz, you have to write true or false, and that's it because it's just a simple check. But in a test, what we work with is skills and ability, so it's better if you can actually support your ideas. What other type of questions could I ask? Why is Victor Frankenstein a stereotypical Byronic hero, or why is the Frankenstein monster a stereotypical Byronic anti-hero? I could ask in Edgar Allan Poe's story, why does Edgar Allan Poe choose to write short stories instead of novellas? I could ask how a plot is, how does the action develop in a plot in any particular story? Like draw a Freytag pyramid of the Pit and the Pendulum, for example. That could be useful. Are you going to put like a paragraph we need to identify it as romanticism Gothic? That is actually a good idea, Carlos. But no, I'm not gonna. That's actually a good idea, man. It's actually a good idea for a question and test to identify the literary movement without telling you the author. Not in this test, but I'm gonna take your word for that. That could be interesting. Like if I could put American realism versus American dark romanticism, and I choose like or weird fiction, or we're gonna see it afterwards. That could be useful. That's a good question. That's a good thing. No, Carlos, I'm gonna keep your word with that. Next time, perhaps we'll have something like this. Oh, 5 minutes more, and we're out. Any other question? Take your chance. There are 9 viewers right now in the stream. gonna write it down. Oh, by the way, somebody asked me to put the presentation on the 8 modes of characterization. In the classroom material, in Google's Classroom, you have the presentation there. Adrian, you're asking about the web quest. Yes and no. This resembles a question that was asked before. The the activities that we do as homework, as the purpose of them is to actually help us learn better, understand better what we're doing, they are going to be indirectly asked for. And how many experience points do we get for doing the quest? As always, if you are very proactive and you do it well, you're going to get 100 XP points. And somebody's about to get to level 2 soon in third A. Well, that's good because I think it's going to be an entire party that's going to be level 2 quite soon. The test will be like Jorge's, over 40. No, not now. I don't see the purpose of doing this test over 40 points. Anyhow, that's just mathematics. If it's over 40, it's actually over 20 times 2. So see it that way. The test will be long, however, Gustavo, and you don't have a lot of time to waste. So be thorough, be clear with what you're going to say. Analyze the question, see what because my questions tend to be complex, so they tend to have a lot of parts. So you have to break down those parts and then answer the question. Adrian is asking about the double self. No, I kept the question of the double self for later on because we will be reading another story that will talk about the double self, and we'll go back to that idea later on. It's a story by Ambrose Bierce. Is it a Caletre exam or not? What do you think? What do you think, Carlos? There is going to have a memorization aspect. Obviously, you need to memorize some things. You need to be strict in what you know. But it's more about analysis, and it's more about discussion. It's more about actually having an intelligent academic opinion. It's almost time to finish our Q&A. If anybody else has a question. If anybody could ask Isabella Ricucci, she just missed a very good opportunity to ask me the same question that she asked me via email. What topic do you recommend to master? Ooh, that's a very good question. I recommend you understand the characteristics of both literary genres. Well, the three of them. You have to consider at least the Gothic and the Dark Romantics, but you have to also understand the difference between American and British Dark Romantics. Think understanding the concepts, the stories in themselves, remembering what was the name of the character, whether Montresa Fortunato, though that may be useful, that's not really important. And Adrian, tomorrow, in all honesty, I don't think we will have the time. I have classes with you, and I have to begin with Ambrose Bierce. So no, our focus in class is not asking questions about the test. That's why I'm creating this open space here that you can ask your questions. Anyhow, I'm not gonna say no. Like I'm not gonna answer your question if we do have the time. I don't know if we'll have the time, but if we do, no problem. Well, it's time to end the video feed, and anybody please write to Isabella Ricucci and tell her that she could have asked her questions through the Google Hangout and the YouTube live feed. Well, take care and enjoy the rest of the day. Behave well, enjoy yourself, and see each other tomorrow. Bye.